Hey everybody, I'm Chauncey Pelzer. I'm the owner of Defining Destiny Coaching and Consulting and the Light Mastermind. And I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about my prophetic journey. So the gift of prophecy is something that the Lord has given all of us, really and truly. But at the same time, I understand that some people may be more gifted in certain areas than not. I do believe I'm one of those people that are more gifted only because that's what's been told to me. So in dealing with lots of people that I've dealt with, I've worked in human resources for almost 20 years. Before that, even just encounters with different friends, family, individuals, it started coming up over and over again. The question, how did you know that? How did you know that? Right? And I'm like, I don't know. I've said that as long as I, got asked that question. I don't know how I know that. I just know I know. So I just wanted to kind of start talking about where this gifting came from. Of course, God, but how it came about. So first, let's go way back to when I was in about 7th grade. And that's the first time that I picked up on the fact that there was something that I had that everybody else didn't have. A certain discernment, should I say. So my grandmother, and I've never spoke publicly about this before, but my grandmother passed away. And before she passed away, I was actually with her on the day that she passed away. We didn't know it was going to happen. It was unexpected, so on and so forth. And that particular day, I remember going to a church picnic with my aunt. And so there, I don't know what happened, but I'm playing with the rest of the kids, right? We're 12. And I remember looking up and the wind just came across my face a certain way. And I know that sounds crazy, but this is the truth. If you know anything about spirit, God, and how he moves, you know when something is getting your attention outside of yourself. So it's like I kind of looked up, I felt that wind, and I was like, something's wrong. And just the first thing that I said out my mouth was, Grandma, something's wrong. And so from that point onwards, I didn't want to play anymore with the kids. I mean, if you can imagine 12-year-old just literally leaving everybody who's playing. And I was like, something's wrong. We got to go home. That's the first thing I thought because I was at my grandmother's house that day. So I go over to my aunt and tell her, hey, we got to go, or I'm ready to go. I'm done playing. You ready to go? Right? Because my little young mind, of course, I didn't know how to tell a grown adult like, oh, I think something might be wrong. I didn't know. So, she was like, oh, I'm still in conversation. Let me do what I do. And you go play with the rest of the kids, have fun. It's not time to go yet. All right. So fast forward, it all just became about getting home ASAP, as soon as possible. And as soon as we did get home, I remember walking. I was the first person to walk through the door. My grandfather had actually gone out to sit on the porch. And I remember walking in the house and everything just felt different. Like we just left that house and it felt one way. And then when I walked back in, it's almost like I walked back into like I don't know. It's just the mood, the air, the environment. It just felt different to me. And so I was like, something is still wrong. But, I see my grandfather. He looks relaxed. So I'm assuming my grandmother's okay. So I walk into the room. And so I'm putting down groceries and I say something to my grandmother. And I remember she was just sitting there, but I could only see like the back of her head. So she was sitting on the couch. She just looked like she was maybe watching TV or something. And I was like, Grandma, da-da-da-da-da. And, and I'm just telling her, number one, I'm relieved that everything appeared to be okay. And then number two, I'm looking and just, I didn't even think anything was really wrong. I was like, okay, well, maybe that was just a feeling I got. Great. She's right there. No problems. And so as I started talking, I got quieter. I was like, wait a minute. That feeling never left me. So I went over, and as I was going over, my cousin and my aunt also came through the door and they were talking and they were like, oh, maybe she's just asleep. I was like, she's not asleep. And, after that for me, cause I'm always about what's the answer, right? So for me, I was like, let's call 911, and so to fast forward through that story, unfortunately, that was the day that she passed. She was living at the time that we got to her, but by the time the ambulance got to her, she got to the hospital. She did pass at the hospital. So that was my first instance or inkling of sometimes I can pick up on something that everybody else may not be aware of at the time. Devastating, changed my life, honestly, because if you've never dealt with death from that standpoint, and even if you have, then you understand exactly what I'm talking about. It was devastating. So lost her. Fast forward 3 years later, same thing, different grandmother, right? This is my father's mother. And for some reason, I don't know why God let me be with both of them at that time, but my grandmother had a stroke. This is my father's mother. And so exact same thing. I'm looking at her, she's trying to cut some cheese or whatever, like literally trying to cut a block of cheese. And I was like, something's wrong. That's just the first thing I thought, something's wrong. And so I just see her and she's kind of like uncoordinated and she's, chopping, and I'm like, or trying to cut, and she couldn't cut it. So I go and I take the knife from her. I was like, Grandma, let me help you out. So by this time, 3 years later, I'm like 15. Oh, no, not 15. I'm younger than that. Anywho, so I'm cutting and I cut fine. She doesn't cut. And I go and I get my dad. I said, Dad, something's wrong. I was like, he's like, well, what's wrong? What are you thinking? And I'm like, I don't know. All I know is that something's not right. And that's all I could pinpoint in my stomach. Something isn't right. Something doesn't feel right. Looking at her trying to cut something, she can't cut it. She wasn't quite slurring her words yet, but I just knew something was off. And so then again, fast forward, it turns out she was having a stroke. And so at that time, because I had already been through what I've been through with my mom's mom, I knew something was wrong. And I just, it was like sound alarm. I was like, something's wrong, something's wrong. And then, I'm arguing with my father. I'm like, something is wrong. She needs to go to the hospital like now. He scoops her up, takes her to the hospital. It turns out she was having a stroke. Those two instances, for me, you could call them coincidences, but I don't personally think they were coincidences. I don't know why God had me in those places at those times, but I'm telling you that it was just a different experience for my life. So that was the first two times that I could say that something outside of myself told me in my heart, in my gut, something is wrong. And I had to react to whatever the situation was. And that was as a child. So those are two instances. I'll come back and probably give some more, but I know that I have a special gifting, and it's something that, like I said, I use when I'm supposed to use it. I don't abuse it. I don't feel like it's something that God gave me to use it against people. Like, in other words, he tells me something about somebody and I use it for my purpose. Nothing of that intention. It's just, this is, who he created me to be. So I wanted to start to share about my gift and how that plays into the type of work I do. And I'll talk more about that. But in essence, the people that I work with and the clients that I work with and any students, whoever, because I've taught community college as well, I've always been able to tell a certain side of their story that they have not told me. And so that's become pretty much the story of my life. And that's why I say prophetic journey. And it helps, honestly. I feel like if you use this gift to help people to get to where they need to be, not psychic, not medium, all God, then I think that it is a gift that is worthy of the calling, right? So I will talk more about it, but I just wanted to let you know just part one of that story, and I'll come back with part two.